What's up? This video is gonna be a little bit different. Um, I'm in bed. I've been sick with the flu for the past week, but today was kind of the first day that I felt not 100%, but enough to really get out and get going. This year, I haven't been sick for a long time, but this year usually the flu puts me on my back and I just can't do anything. But I haven't had a choice. I've had to work physically, mentally, long days during the whole process. And I just wanted people to be motivated by that. I want people to realize the only limits that are in place on us are the ones that we set, not the box that other people put you in, not how other people see you as, not what other people define you as. What is your definition of yourself? That's the only limit. If you think that you can only make a certain amount per year, per month, per hour, that will be your limit. I mean that. That will shape your reality, And there's a lot of conspiracies out there, there's a lot of hearsay, but the harsh reality of it is we get brainwashed. And by we, I mean most people. I fortunately I was blessed having gotten expelled, from school, being forced pretty much to be homeschooled or, you know, um, having to go to a place where the education is even worse. So for me, there was a point in my time where, my mother, who had her own business in real estate, um, she was busy. So, she would go and buy like the textbooks or the online programs and like she was there to answer questions and stuff, but come on, like we've all probably seen the show like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Right? And I was literally being homeschooled at that time. So, if somebody put me being 27 through like the same type of questions, there'd be a lot that I wouldn't be able to answer because that information isn't there. But when I was homeschooled, I was actually doing like college and high school level work. I kid you not. My mom would go buy the textbooks, and in fourth grade, like the way that I would start my day every day was writing a one-page college ruled essay. So before I had done anything for the day, most kids are like warming up with crayons, and I was writing essays. But you know what? All of that just made it easier for me to write. That's why I've written multiple books. That's why I've written thousands upon thousands upon thousands of articles. And a lot of that is like, there have been people who don't know that about me, but rather than get to know that, they put me in a box. And they, based on how I look, how I sound, they think that my potential is limited when it's not. It's so far from it. Am I an alien? Am I just better than everyone else, completely unique? Who knows, right? But at the same time, like, I don't care what other people think about me or have to say, especially if they are not actually contributing to my success. So there are very few people out there who contribute to that. I contribute to my success, and most people are either on the sidelines watching, you know, um, in the background talking about it, but very few people are actually coming to me asking me what they can do to contribute to my success. And unless they are doing that, what they have to say about it, it really doesn't mean much to me. I value everyone's opinions, I value people's experience, but when it comes to something as important as my success, the amount of time that I put in for myself, I tell people my freaking ancestors were slaves, right? Empire, every empire that has ever existed was built on the backs of slavery. The difference is, you know, forced slavery based on skin color as opposed to like class is completely different, you know. But the way that I look at the new era of slavery is we have machines and, we have ourselves. I am a slave, but I'm a slave for myself. Most people can't say that. Most people, they don't like the definition of slave, but they're a slave for something. You're either a slave for society, a slave for your employer, or like most people are some type of slave, and they're not willing to accept that harsh reality. Whereas for me, I recognized that very early on, and I just changed it. Like I will work 3 and 4 days straight, nonstop, physical, mental labor, nonstop. I'm not kidding. For myself, I would rather do that than to go clock in an 8-hour shift for someone else. Why? That doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Why? I could go work, like I said, 8 hours, get a lunch break, uh, and like go home, and that's it. But in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like where would those 8 hours get me? I look at the amount of time I invest in myself. Every second compounds. Every second is equivalent to pennies or dollars that actually gets compounded rather than, you know, getting spent at freaking Whataburger or at the club. So I just think I encourage people. I highly encourage people to become slaves, for yourself, for your household, for your family. Our education system in America, the worst. Not the worst, but one of the worst in the planet. There are places overseas where kids can go to school for a few months out of the year, and that's it. Not the entire year. Not going to school like during the summer and all. And it's more efficient. Right? Like overseas, people get guaranteed paid time off. Some countries it's like 20 to 24 to 28 days that they're required to get paid time off from their employer. There's some places overseas where they're required to not work after a certain time of the day, during the weekend. Why is that? It's because people are more efficient, and they just realize like, like they're people have been trying to make other people slaves since the beginning of time. But now we are actually reaching, a point in society where, I mean, are you going to be a slave to a piss poor education system, or are you going to be a slave for yourself? Are you out there chasing this elusive American dream where you have to go to school, you have to get an education, you have to rack up, $60 to $100,000 worth of debt with interest that's going to take you a lifetime to pay off? Or could you just go out there, get all the bumps and bruises and scrapes that you possibly can, learn all the life lessons that you can, and come out on the other side of it stronger? I mean, I always think that furthering education is important, but It doesn't have to be a degree. You don't have to know a whole lot of vocabulary terms. You don't have to be a walking thesaurus to know business, to know marketing, to know whatever it is that you want. I mean, even entrepreneurship, like I kind of laugh when I just the idea of entrepreneurship being taught in college. I mean, why do you think Elon Musk, a lot of billionaires, like they're putting together their own education programs for their kids, right? It's like an elite society almost. They don't want their kids going to these public schools. They don't even want their kids going to like these little preppy schools. They want it to be their own because education is superior. Education has always separated the slaves from the slave masters. So the difference is becoming educated in something that is going to produce monetary value, monetary gain. Um, I mean, because that's what we need in today's world to be more successful. You know, um, but I mean, there was a point in time where people were just pioneers. They were entrepreneurs. They were, you know, while the man is building the home, the wife is taking care of the food, and you know, um, they've got kids handling the animals and the chores. And one day, the Rockefellers decided, hey, there's a lot of time and a lot of money out there that we could be earning. All those tax dollars, like you're required to send your kids to school to give them some type of education, and like I do think that's important. The way that they did it wasn't necessarily for the children; it was for the monetary value of the taxes, and at the same time, what that does is when you make someone have to pay to send their kids to school, that's time away from their business, right? That's money away from their business. So now in a market, in a world where resources are limited, um, finite, right? Meaning like there's only but so much money that can be printed before it's burned. There's only but so many people. There's only but so much time. I don't like to put limitations on myself, but in terms of like everything else, I won't limit another person. When I meet someone, I don't prejudge them. I Anything that somebody else might have said about that person, it's a clean slate with me. I If somebody talks crap about someone, I am likely, if I do judge, I'm more likely to judge that person who's talking bad about someone else because like why that person doesn't have anything to gain, or do they? You know, um, and more often than not, those people who they were talking about to this day have never shown me any trace of what that other person was talking about. So I let people show me who they are. I let people paint the picture of where I see their potential is. And I mean, unfortunately, there's people out there who, um, you know, there's people out there who don't see that, who don't do that, right? Oh, the color of his skin means that he's only worth a certain amount. I mean, oh, he can only make a certain amount. He can only have a certain amount of impact. Why stop there? I met someone today who had glasses. I told him like, just because you have glasses doesn't mean anything. Just because you have short hair, long hair. I had dreads. When I cut my dreads off, people started seeing, the more professional side of me. It opened up a lot more opportunities. But why? Why? Like, I bet you if I shave my facial hair off, like a certain type of person would be ready to cut me a check based on that. I have the same mindset, the same information. I'm a year older, a year wiser, but am I that much more different without dreads than, you know, with? No. So I'm making these videos because I know there's people out there where the information that I give is gold. My words are gold, and the time that I give to people is gold. And then there's people out there who are gonna do the exact same for me one day. Whether I'm down, whether I'm going through depression, there's a comment out there, there's a DM, there's an email that somebody is gonna be listening, and it's gonna make a huge difference. So that's why I do it. And I believe in the law of attraction. I believe in speaking things into existence. I believe in manifestation, which is a lot of like in the business world, this is stuff that you can't actually measure, which means to a lot of people it's fake. It doesn't exist. But to me, that's the only thing that exists. One plus one doesn't always equal two, right? Science isn't always right. Science isn't always accurate. So I live in a reality where there's a lot more that we cannot measure than the stuff that we can. And in my reality, the stuff that we can't measure, which is 99.999% of everything, that's where success happens. That is where that's where the learning occurs. You know, if you went to school every day with the same information, like the same amount of complacency that people have in the workforce, where they just go through the 9 to 5 motions of every day. They're not really learning anything new. They're just mindless drones carrying out orders. If you live your life that way, I mean, I'm not gonna judge. That's fine, you know. But there's so much more out there that we don't know, and if we seek that and continue to seek that, it almost guarantees a certain outcome, right? That's the law of nature.